Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole of 4th District of Oklahoma. It's another one of our congressional chats. Congress this week has actually been pretty productive. I know that's a shock to people, but it really has. Let's start with the most significant piece of legislation that's come across the floor. There was a major bipartisan tax legislation that would revive and extend several items in the Trump 2017 Tax Act, things like allowing for full expensive equipment purposes, writing off of the cost of research and development, all very pro-business, pro-economic growth things. Second part of that is an extension of the child tax credit. That's problematic to some Republicans, and some Democrats think we didn't do enough, but the reality is this would help people that are at the lower end of the income stream to get rebates on their taxes. There's protections to make sure that these kids are American citizens, and but in other words, to help families with children or single parents with children have a little bit more financial wherewithal to help along the way with all the expenses associated with having kids. So I think that's a good thing. And the piece I like is the third part. It's actually paid for. In other words, it actually, they've eliminated some other expiring tax provisions that haven't expired yet, where there's been a great deal of fraud, honestly. And they've said, let's just end these early, the savings we can direct. So you don't, under congressional rules, you don't have to, quote, pay for tax cuts. This one actually is paid for. And the Congressional Budget Office, in scoring it, has said actually over time it will lower the deficit slightly. So it's not a huge advantage, but given the size of the deficits we're running, having something that's actually paid for is a good thing. So I thought it was a good piece of legislation. It passed overwhelmingly on the floor. I think only 50 odd votes against it. It was about 170 some odd for it on the Republican side, about 180, I think, on the Democratic side. So it really was a genuine bipartisan compromise. The Democrats more interested in the child tax credit, the Republicans more interested in the pro-growth, pro-business provisions. But the point is, they found a deal. They got a big piece of legislation through. Now goes to the Senate. Its fate is uncertain. There's certainly some opposition to it, particularly on the Republican side. But this is a deal between the chairman of Ways and Means in the House and his counterpart in the Senate, Jason Smith and Senator Wyden. So we'll see. It's got a reasonable chance of passage, I would think, in the United States Senate, and might well get to the president's desk. So it's a nice change in productivity. So that's one thing that's going on and moving out in the open. Second thing that the House did this week was move 4 different pieces of immigration-related legislation. These are things that help us do a better job of protecting police officers, of punishing illegal, immigrants here who commit DUIs, things of that nature, make communities safer. Obviously, we have a southern border crisis, and we're seeing a lot of the fallout in terms of higher crime and more violence in our own communities. So Congress is trying to address this. At least House Republicans are trying to address this. Although the legislation we're talking about in 4 different pieces have gotten some Democratic support as well. So they're not as bipartisan as the tax measure were, but they certainly have drawn support from both sides of the aisle, which in these days is something of a rarity and something to be celebrated. So we did quite a bit of work on that this week. To me, probably the biggest thing are behind the scenes, and that's the appropriations bills. If you followed the appropriations process, it's been long and tortured, and we're already well behind schedule on getting funding done for this fiscal year. We now have new target dates for the bills run out March 1st. Another 8 run out on March the 8th. But we have agreed upon a top line number with the Democrats that has passed the House. The principal negotiators at the top, that is the chairman and ranking member of appropriations in the House, and the chairman and ranking member of the Senate. And I probably shouldn't say chairman. It's actually, these are 4 women. So it's the chairwoman, Kay Granger in the House, chairwoman Patty Murray in the Senate, and their ranking members are both women, Rosa DeLauro in the House and Susan Collins in the Senate. All 4 very talented legislators. They're very anxious in getting the bills done, so they have arrived at an agreement about how much money for each of the 12 bills will be there. We're now in negotiation. I'm intimately involved in the negotiation for the bill that funds transportation, housing, and urban development. We're going to have a robust bill. The figure they agreed at was higher than we had in the House earlier, lower than they had in the Senate. But the point is, we're going to be able to, I think, get to a good deal. And in that deal, there are lots of good things for Oklahoma, obviously for our national infrastructure program, but we're working hard on trying to get some things specific to the state of Oklahoma and the 4th District. Probably the most important piece there is for the Federal Aeronautic Agency, the FAA as it's called. Mike Mulroney Aeronautical Center, of course, is in the state of Oklahoma. It's in Congressman Lucas's district, but it's really in a part of the state where Congressman Lucas's district, Congresswoman Bice's district, and my district all come together. So we all have quite a few employees. Most people in Oklahoma aren't aware of this, but the Mike Mulroney Aeronautical Center is the 2nd largest employer in Oklahoma City, single site employer, Tinker Air Force Base being the large one. So what happens there is very important. So we have a very robust commitment toward the FAA. We also have quite a few Oklahoma-specific projects in the bill, and we've also tried to address some of the imbalances that have built up over the years in tribal road and tribal housing money, and of course Oklahoma benefits from that, quite frankly. So again, we're working in good faith. We've presented at the staff level offers to our Democratic counterparts in the Senate and our Democratic colleagues in the House. This is what we think, and we're now trying to work it through and get done in the deadlines that we've been given. And I can tell you we're making good progress on our bill. I can't talk to you about all the others. I don't know, but I hear good things on quite a few of the others. So maybe Congress will actually fund the government. Late is better than never, and maybe there'll be some good things in there. Certainly pay raises for our men and women in uniform. It's a dangerous world. We need to upgrade what we're doing in terms of defense around the globe. And of course, Oklahoma always has a big stake in that. We have 5 major military installations. We have a lot of contracting and what have you. So all those things are pretty productive and broadly moving in the right direction. All of us in the House are anxiously watching what's happening in the Senate. As any of you that follow closely legislative matters know, the Senate is dealing with a supplemental, which would be additional funding for the state of Israel, which of course is in very serious conflict right now after the atrocities of October the 7th with the terrorist organization Hamas. Our friends in the Western Pacific are worried about China, particularly Taiwan, so the administration requested money there. Ukraine, of course, is an ongoing conflict where the United States has been heavily involved, and we're debating what we should do, how much additional money there. I will point out, and this is often missed in the American press, the European Union just pledged $54 billion to help Ukraine in this conflict with the Soviet Union. So anybody thinks our European allies aren't doing their part, actually they're punching above their weight. Many of these, there's about 11 countries that are committed more money as a percentage of their federal budget and a percentage of their gross national product than we have. That's fine, they should, it's closer, and the Europeans over time have relied too much on the United States, have not done enough. In this case, they are. And they've already made that commitment. They passed it through the European Union Parliament, and they're now waiting on the Americans. So that's, again, all over in the Senate. And finally, that's caught up with a border security issue. Our own Senator Lankford is working that issue very hard. A lot of people are very critical of what he's doing. I don't know how they can be that critical because they haven't seen it. No text has been released, and it's not like James Lankford has ever been anything other than a border hawk. I mean, he's always been very interested in protecting America's borders. So I know he's not going to negotiate anything that would be a bad deal, and I think he's gotten a lot of unfair criticism, in my view. People should wait and see what the product is, and they should rely on Senator Lankford's consistent record of being, pro-defending the American border and very much against illegal immigration. If the Senate manages to pass either the foreign aid packages, and or the border security piece, it would come over here, and it'll be the foreign aid package. The big fight would be over Ukraine. I think there's strong support in the House of Representatives on both sides of the aisle for aid to Israel. There's strong support on both sides of the aisle for aid to Taiwan and strengthening our own forces in the Western Pacific. I'd say the Democrats are very strongly in support of Ukraine aid. Republicans are split on that issue. So that would just have to play itself out over here. The border piece might be attached to that. That's the way it is in the Senate right now, or it might not. I suspect if Senator Lankford agrees to something, it will make the border situation better, but I would think the House would probably want to do something in addition to whatever is done over there, and that would become a matter of negotiation. So it's still not clear to me whether or not the border piece will be split out of this and will move to the national security, foreign aid type of initiatives, or whether this will stay in one package. Senate politics on this, I think, are very difficult to predict and seem to be changing quite a bit. So again, we're focused on the appropriations process. Again, so are my Senate colleagues that are on the appropriations committees, but the Senate right now has very important things related, again, to this foreign military assistance and border issue. We're waiting to see what they do before we take it up over here in the House, and I think that's the appropriate thing to do. Again, I would expect quite a bit of activity in the next couple of months. Hopefully, at the end of that time, we will have gotten gotten the government funded, looked at legislation to strengthen us on the border, where we have a Biden-created national disaster underway. You'll hear a lot of rhetoric about this, the president claiming he can't do any more without congressional action. That's just not true. He undid the Trump border security measures, particularly the Remain in Mexico policy, which said you can't come in under asylum until your case is adjudicated. If you come in illegally, we will detain you, we'll hold you until your status is declared. We will not just release you into the population. These are all things the president did all on his own from day one in his administration. So he could do a lot for border security just by reversing those bad decisions he made. Congress does not have to be part of that. He can do that on his own tomorrow, and he should do it. He hasn't. That's one of the reasons why people are skeptical, even if we create a good border package, that the administration will actually enforce it. It's pretty much ignored the law as it is so far. No reason to believe if we pass a new law, they'll do better. But again, we're going to continue to work the problem, but it's something people ought to take into account, as they think politically, because again, Joe Biden that created this mess in the first place. The border was more or less under control. He reversed most of President Trump's policies that were successful, and now we're reaping the consequences. And rather than accepting the responsibility for what he did on his own, president's trying to blame the Republicans. I'm sorry. In the first 2 years of his administration, the Democrats controlled the House, they controlled the Senate. Obviously, the president's a Democrat. Their policies that they implemented did not work. The things that they got rid of, that President Trump had put in place, did work. And now they're trying to blame it on the Republicans. It is farcical to even entertain that as remotely serious consequence or remotely serious position. But hey, it's politics, and people can say what they want, but the facts in this one, I think, are abundantly clear. Joe Biden broke it. Joe Biden should fix it. Congress should strengthen it. And that's what we're trying to do. Some of our colleagues on the Democratic side, I think, are being pretty disingenuous about the situation, who caused it, what happened, and how you can fix it. But again, we're going to continue working on that. The American people can look at the facts. They'll make a judgment in November, later this year, as to who they trust on the border, who they want in charge of that. It'll be a surprise to me if they want the continued chaos that Democrats have brought us on this issue. But if we can do something constructive in the meantime, we should. We're going to look very seriously to see what comes out of the Senate. And by the way, if what comes out of the Senate is good, we have the opportunity to make it better in the House. I hope we take that opportunity and do some additional things to whatever Senator Langford negotiates and his colleagues pass. Because remember, he's in the minority in the United States Senate. He is negotiating from the position of the minority. In the House, we're in the majority. And on this issue, we're actually pretty unified when it comes to the border. So I think Republicans want to go much further than Democrats do in terms of securing the border, and certainly further in the Biden administration. And we hope in the elections we'll have more colleagues on both sides of the aisle that share that point of view and share that value, and frankly a new administration that's much more committed to defending the American borders. But again, we're working it pretty hard. With that, we'll look forward to visiting with you soon. I'd be remiss not to say I'm losing my longtime communications director, Melissa Stokesbury. She's actually filming this as we talk. She's done a fantastic job for our people that live in our district, certainly for this office. She's going back to her home state of Tennessee to take a very responsible position, Deputy State Director for Senator Hagerty, who's one of the great new voices we have in the United States Senate, former ambassador to Japan, and a very successful entrepreneur and business person in his home state, great leader for our country. So she's going to a better place, but we certainly hate losing her here. So Melissa, I'd be remiss not to thank you on camera, where our constituents can see it, for all the hard work you've done behind the scenes to make sure that people will stay informed and help us project our message and be responsive to our community. And we're going to miss you. And we're very grateful for the time you spent here, all the hard work that you've done for the people of the 4th District. And we wish you much success in Tennessee, except when it comes to playing OU, because she's a pretty proud Tennessean, and I know she's going to be rooting for the other side anytime we square off in the SEC. But we want her successful in all things other than that. And with that, we look forward to visiting with you in the future, and good luck. God bless. Look after your families, and be safe.